Hey, I went on a little bit of a soapbox, and you know me better than most, especially in your industry. We got into this discussion I don't know,
last week, I
it
think.
seems like a lot, but because it's no disrespect to recruiting services, but it doesn't seem like, with the 4 and 5 star hype and recruiting, and because Kirby and Nick used to say so, like that set the standard, and then it morphed into how you can't rank 3 stars and what happens when you miss on guys, and it every year it comes up, right? But my point in this was sometimes guys just miss, right? Like it's just it's not a good rating. It was inaccurate, yet we'll still judge and get worked up over it in the meantime. And I say all that to say, Mike J, I'm looking at Jackson Carpenter. And again, I say it all the time, I'd rather be right than well liked. So this doesn't have anything to do with my affinity for Tim. It's having coached against him and watched him since he was young. Nebraska is getting a significantly better talent than like the general public that may just look at stats thinks. Do you agree or kind of disagree? Should I pump the brakes on that? He's this dude is gifted. He's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't want to over speak on my behalf on it because I haven't seen Jackson enough. I mean, I think I've only watched one game with him in it. I can't say that he popped extremely in that game because it
Yeah.
was a pretty low scoring affair. So for me, it's more of a situation where you put on the film, you see the athleticism, I see the speed. You have the family lineage where his dad played college football, and you add all of that up, that it sort of works there. But I'm not going to act like I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other with Jackson Carpenter, in part because I just haven't. As far as local guys, he's probably the one other than Ryman Ziebert who I haven't seen at all in person. I mean, as far as local guys, I just haven't seen enough to really be able to go deep on it. And so for me, it was this checks a lot of the boxes of which they look for, and you go back to that speed over and over and over. They really like, the quickness there. And then he's got a projectable body size. I don't know if he's exactly 6'1", but he's over 6 foot. You can see what that weight can look like and what that frame can look like 18 months after spending time with Corey Cooper. It could, you could really have something to work with there. And then he's a versatile athlete. Like he can play in different ways and do different things. I felt like both of these guys that they took early in their career are going to be known for what they do on special teams far more than probably where they would show out as wide receivers. And then that part will come later. But I look at both of these guys as really nice depth additions to building up, special teams players while they're waiting for their turns as wide receivers in years, 2, 3, and 4.
So, Schaefer, let me ask you, I guess, sort of a philosophical question about the recruiting industry a little bit. Obviously, you've worked in this realm for a long time. When you see let's say a 3-star guy that quote unquote gets missed on, right? A guy that ends up being really good. Have you noticed a common denominator in any of those guys? Like, this guy didn't really go to camp, so we didn't get a chance to see him or get measurables on him. Or he's from like a really small town. It was hard to go get film on him. It was hard to know what level of competition. Like, have you seen any kind of commonalities that you've noticed patterns emerge where, a 3-star guy that pops off, like there's some things that you can gather from the large sample size of some of those guys?
Well, I think the common thing that I see is that people want to make everyone the same, and they don't look at where this guy goes to this school and it's a really good fit because of the type of offense that they run or the type of defense that they run, or it's a really good fit because of the type of coach that they have and the development that he's getting. I think so many people feel like the players themselves are already ready-made pieces that you ignore the coaching and the development aspect that takes place inside the program that nobody gets to see. I mean, part of it with recruiting is you're projecting forward what you think the talent can be, but you don't necessarily know what the person is or what the level of work that they're willing to put in. I mean, you try to tap into some of that, and the evaluations try to tap into some of that. You try to see if there's athletic upside still there, but you don't know what a person is until they're put into certain situations. And some people just are better at developing talent. Some people are better at developing specific styles and specific body types. And it's, I think it's really hard to try to go into this and be like, all right, well, we're not going to miss anybody. I mean, you're clearly going to. The context of all of these situations are unique. You never know who's going to show up as a highly recruited guy, and he's going to have a position coach that's going through struggles in his own life and is half-assing it while he's coaching in the program. I mean, there's so many external factors that we spend a lot of time just like looking at someone's rating and thinking that's who they are, and that's just kind of the jumping off point to a discussion. It never should be the wholesale image of what a recruit can or can't be.
Shave, I'm glad that you brought up fit here, because it's something I used to say a lot. I actually stole it from, I stole it from the education
Taj
world.
Mahal?
No, I'm Indian. I'm not British, so I didn't steal anything from the Taj Mahal. I stole it.
We're learning here today. We're learning.
Safe, I'm sorry.
I stole it from the education world, right? And it's, it doesn't matter how good of a fish you are. If somebody asks you to climb a tree, you're going to feel stupid, right? Like, you can recruit all the 5-star fish you want, but if your offense or defense requires them to climb trees, they're not going to look very talented, right? But if you recruit a 3-star squirrel to climb that tree, he's going to look a heck of a lot better than the 5-star fish, right? Like, that's a super oversimplified version of what you're saying, but that's just kind of an example of like how fit matters so much more than maybe we realize, because we talk about it with like quarterbacks and stuff like that, but it matters everywhere.
We'll take 2 guys on the current roster. I mean, what does Bryce Benhart and Ty Robinson look like to everyone right now today than what they looked like 3 years ago when they were under an entirely different coaching staff, being asked to do entirely different things? And we're talking about 2 guys that were top 247, can't miss. Look at those projectable frames. Look at the body size. There's no character concerns for either one of them. And yet, if you ask someone in 2022 or 2021 their thoughts on Bryce Benhart and Ty Robinson, I guarantee you're not getting lavish, oh man, these are
especially Benhart.
So it's some of it is time too. Like, and we're super, super guilty of this in the recruiting industry and the fan bases as well, and the analysis world. We want everything to work on our timeline, and it doesn't work that way. It works on the time of which things can come together and they happen. And now we're talking about both of these guys, Bryce Benhart and Ty Robinson, is extremely important cogs on a 2024 football team that there's expectations for. And that's just part of the deal. And those were 2 highly recruited guys. Mm-hmm. And it just takes a right fit. Bryce Benhart is a better player today because Nebraska stuck with Donovan Rhule into Matt Rhule's scheme, and with Donovan Rhule for 2 years under Scott Frost. I just think it's the people fit, it's the system fit, and it takes some time. Sometimes guys have to fail once, twice, 3 times, and then it's going to connect. Then it's going to connect, then it's going to click. We want this to be way easier than it is, and it's just not. It involves people and it involves skill, building. It's not as simple as a video game.
Yeah. So you say something that's interesting, because we started this whole evolution of the spring ball hype. It started obviously with the quarterbacks. This was, you were still chilling on your getaway, and we got into this about, do we fully trust Coach Rhule, right? If you fully trust Coach Rhule, or you want your theories confirmed, well, if this quarterback starts, then that means this, and we'll have these sweeping indictments over spring. And we tried to get out in front of this, and I think what do you think about this, Schaefer? Where if you trust the staff and their development, you're talking about it real hand. Guys are better the longer that they've been around this staff, at least in year 1. Going into year 2, why do you think we can't look at spring ball that way, as opposed to making these sweeping generalizations after day 1 or day 7? He's told us this is just one part of the process. Move on, we'll get better. Move on, he's said 1,000 times, you won't know anything about the quarterbacks until they actually play a game. Hey, defensively, we want to work on this, and this. Take away. You won't know anything about that until they actually play a game. So why can't we just look at spring as from a trust standpoint that it's a day by day checkbox thing more than it is like this end of the year celebratory thing. Let's critique it.
I think in part because we haven't had a spring that's been able to be built off of something going from before it in quite some time. I mean, if you think about how these timelines sort of have worked, you go back to the 2022 spring. That entire spring was a referendum on the hires that Scott Frost had made and Casey Thompson as the next quarterback. 2023, you got the whole referendum of what is Matt Rhule, what is this staff, how is it going to work with this team. You go to 2021 and you're, first spring post COVID. So you're basically in this team is coming back after the COVID year. They're a veteran group. So I think 2021 is the closest you've had to a somewhat normal spring. And so a lot of it is also just the desperation of the season has now seeped into the off season in every conceivable way. I mean, if Nebraska misses on someone people are excited about in the transfer portal, it seems to hurt even worse right now. Like, I just think,
remember the bad mouthing of Judy? Well, they see there's a reason he's not playing in the SAC, and now it's like
MJ Sherman.
Oh God, man, Judy could be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is people want, and they want it now, and the spring is not when you get now. So we create conversations built around now, but there's really, there's a finite amount of things that you can truly talk about and assess this spring, and especially when they're in a building mode, and that's kind of what it feels like they are. Like they put a foundation down, and now they're starting to build on that foundation. And this is what you want from your program. Like, you want to be building forward. You don't want to be going through the wholesale change every spring.
Well, so Schaefer, that reminds me, because I remember last fall, where Nebraska starts off 0-2, Colorado starts off 2-0, and people are clamoring, why can't we do it the way Dion did it? Why can't we get good right away? It took Dion overnight, blah, blah, blah. And guess what the final records of those two teams were, right? Nebraska ended up with one more win over the course of the season than Colorado. Now, is that a place where Nebraska wants to stay at 5-7? Of course not. But I think it's really hard for Nebraskans to separate this year, this staff, this team from the last, I'll go the last 20 years, but especially the last 7.
Yeah, but you have a coach like telling you how you should look at it.
I understand that, but
you know what I mean? So if we're just
that doesn't change how people feel.
Yeah, but if you trust, you trust, right?
But okay, so let's turn that around before we get too far down that line. When's the last time this fan base got to trust a coach, Damon? Implicitly trust the coach and believe that they were going to get what they put into it out of it.
I would probably say Bo.
So we're talking a decade now.
Yeah.
Almost 15 years.
Yep. I'd say
you can't, you can't put your whole trust into it.
No. But Schaefer, no. So don't compartmentalize it. Look at it in its totality, right? They were 5-7 last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Rhule's a great orator, right? And we said, and I agree with it. It's never seemed more cohesive than now, right? So if you use the term trust in that context, and it's present progressive, we can trust right now. Shay, it doesn't have anything to do with 15 or 10 years ago. Although I get the isolated question, in the context of how we feel about Coach Rhule and his staff, it doesn't have some magical cutoff. Well, we trust, we like this, and this, but man, I don't know.
Well, you're asking for a rationalization from a thing that's inherently irrational.
Is it?
I think we're talking about a certain level of, and I don't use this term lightly.
Yes, you do.
No, I really don't.
Probably do.
I use.
What do you think, Schaefer? Before he says it, what do you think? Think he's using?
I don't know. I've just been staring at a jacket the whole time.
Yeah, well, it's
AFC Richmond, baby.
I'm wondering if Coach Beard is coming in off screen somewhere, or what's going to be happening.
It's a silent endorsement.
Really more of a Roy Kent guy myself, but
well played.
No,
He's here, he's there, he's
every
everywhere.
bleeping where Roy Kent. Did you finally watch it?
No.
Oh,
But
come on,
I'm
man.
not. I'm smart enough to know that.
You're on TikTok enough to know
Yeah.
that.
Touche, dirtbag.
No, I think there's a level of, and I don't use this term lightly because I get it's a real thing in way more serious situations, but there is a certain fan-ish level of like PTSD that fans can't shake from other coaching staff. So yes, we may say, hey, we like X, Y, and Z from Coach Rhule, and we think we trust him in this, but there is something in the back of our heads from the last decade that you look at and you go, yeah, but, and you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And because you're waiting for it, you're searching for it.
Well, I just think being hyper paranoid about waiting for something to fail, I would argue, is less healthy than.
I'm not saying it's healthy.
Not to time out. Then being, I'm not grading you before you put your fist up. Jiminy Christmas, like Mike Tyson, man. Shay, but what about just going along for the ride? That's kind of in essence what I'm saying. We already have like this mythical cutoff point. Well, I'm all in until, and that unto itself is unhealthy.
Yeah, I think what you want to do right now is you want to debate how people are.
I just want to take it day by day. I just want to take it day by day. Like don't. No, I'm not really saying how to be a fan. I'm saying with spring, you have a young wide receiving core. You have young quarterbacks. You are unsettled at your most infamous position at running back, right? Mike Schaefer here for running backs. It's amazing that I love you so much. He hates running backs. But anyway,
I don't hate them. I want them to play better. Like there's a big difference there. I certainly don't hate them.
How excited can we be about? And I mean, are we banking on the off? Like, how does it move our emotional needle so much if you just simply look at the data?
I can't speak for everyone. I don't know what it's like been for your show and the reaction that you're getting. I feel like on the message board and certainly with the people in my own life, there's been a pretty muted reaction to the spring as it is anyways. Like I don't think there's this is all anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that people are too up in arms about anything right now because I think there's a pretty heavy kind of wait and see, like I need to see what this looks like, or I want to see what Dylan Rhule looks like on a consecutive plays without it just being hand selected and put on Twitter from the Nebraska football staff. Like I think that is more of what I've experienced than there is the like gung-ho, everything needs to be fixed today, because I think a lot of people were like, all right, they had 5 wins going into the month of November and they turned into the same old team. Like it doesn't, I want to see what this team looks like when we get into the fall more than it is the conversation of the spring. Now, again, that's more anecdotal for me. I don't know what it's been like for everybody else, and it might just be I'm surrounded by people that are a little bit more muted on it than they have been.
Speaking of, reliving or living in the past, at what point do you think Nebraska you probably don't, or maybe you do. Do you even look at Nebraska's schedule versus where they are today? It almost seems like, boy, that takes a lot of nerve to be able to do, but you could easily convince me why we do it when you see the way the schedule breaks, right? It appears to be much more advantageous than it has been in the past. But am I cool with saying, I don't even know what we're getting to earn the right to look at that compare and contrast?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think one of the dangers is always you want to extrapolate what someone's done or what it looked like last year to how it's going to look like next year with these college programs. And really, it's a week-to-week thing sometimes. I mean, the version of Nebraska in October and the version of Nebraska in November, wildly different in some parts. And that was within the same season. So if you try to look that far ahead in the spring to what it's going to look like, it's kind of a fool's errand. But it's also sort of fun to kind of try to preview and discuss these things way out in advance. I honestly, one of the things right now, they've changed the schedule so often, I couldn't tell you how their Big Ten play even lines up right now. Like I know they start off with UTEP and then Colorado, and then after that, it gets pretty foggy for me pretty fast.
Did you pay attention to the portal yesterday? Did Colorado have an exodus? Did I miss that?
They had several guys who played last year go in. I don't know exactly what it means. I don't think that's a particularly healthy program, and I don't think we're going to spend as much time talking about them in 2024 as we did in 2023. But we'll see how it goes.
You mean you think losing 8 of their last 9 after they were crowned champs? You don't think that was a place where they're super healthy and good to go?
Yeah, I think that people are going to be less interested.
What happened yesterday? I get it was the first day that the portal opens, but man, they just started.
I don't know, maybe Dion had his meetings that he didn't attend where players were told that they couldn't come back.
Well, if he had meetings, we certainly would have seen video of it, because pretty sure.
Well, he didn't attend the meetings. They had meetings.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure
acting head coach, whoever it is, had meetings.
Pretty sure that guy doesn't do anything that doesn't end up on camera. So,
Schaefer, we only got about 30 seconds, but has your mind shifted into, from what you've heard and been able to glean, of the position group that interests you the most now, or is it still the same?
It's still, I think the wide receivers are still the group that interests me the most right now in this spring, just because of the amount of talent and how it all could kind of work together, and just kind of the unique styles that they have inside that room. A lot of different players, a lot of different options.
He's here. He's there. He's every bleeping where. Mike Schaefer. That's Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7.
Thanks, Mike J.
All right, guys. Have a good Tuesday.